So I'm here with Nick McCormick, and behind him, probably, well, it's the first Hesston tractor we've ever done, and probably the rarest tractor that we've ever done. What is it?
It's a 1580 Hesston. What makes this one pretty unique is its Powershift. So they only made 10 or 15 of them, as far as I know, that were Powershift. And then they came out with the 90 series, the 160-90s, 180-90s that replaced them. So they, when these came out, like I said, the 10 or 15 of them there was, to my understanding, of course, when this came out, I was pretty young. But after 1,000 hours, you got a free Powershift. They wanted the old one back so they could look at it, tear it down, see what was where, and so on and so forth. So you got a brand new Powershift at 1,000 hours. So,
okay.
yeah. Because the first ones were all hand built, and then the next ones would have came down the assembly line or whatever.
But this one never did get a Powershift, you said?
No, I think we ended up putting one in it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. I think, pretty sure we ended up putting the new one in that they gave us. Because we had the debate. It's like, well, the first one was hand built. It was they probably took more care, but I think we ended up swapping it.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they were pretty adamant they wanted them back,
Okay. Yeah. So, and we should point out that when you guys got this tractor, I guess we should do a close-up here of why this tractor is pretty special to you. Is you guys were selling these.
Yes. We did not sell this one new. We actually bought this one really low-houred somewhere else, but it wasn't brand new at the time.
Okay. Did you sell any 1580s?
Yeah, we sold a bunch of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you sell any of the Powershift ones?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So did your dad see this was a Powershift and go, I want this?
Yeah.
Okay.
That, like I said, it didn't have hardly any hours on it or whatever. And we needed a bigger tractor at the time, and so it was a nice fit.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then this was the big horse. Well, we should add, I mean, you guys farm too. You're not just an equipment dealer.
Yeah. This was our big horse for years. Years and years and years. Of course, it was the tractor you wanted to drive because it's the only one that had, at that time that we had that had a really nice cab on it, So it was either set outside or you got to drive the Hesston, which coincidentally I was low man on the totem pole for a long time, so I didn't get to run it as much back then. But now all we pretty much do with it's we've got a blade on it, and that's pretty much what it does because it's super handy because it's got a shuttle and a foot throttle and it's Powershift, so you can do your blading, spin around pretty quick, turn short, obviously it's two-wheel drive, you can flip it and go back the other way, and it's really, really handy on the blade. Like we talked about getting rid of it several years ago, and I told Dad, I'm like, I don't think we can find anything else that handy to do that job with. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. I'm like, there's no reason to spend money trying to do that, so we'll just keep it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, with the connection now,
Yeah, now I'm glad we did. Yeah.
Do you have any other Hestons at all?
No. I wish we'd have kept a little small front wheel assist with a loader, but we never did.
So, yeah. Better keep one.
Yeah.
So when did you guys become a Hesston dealer?
Probably 82, 83. I think Dad started that off pretty early on when he started the shop and moved it from here into town. And then when they bought New Holland in, what was that, 93, 4, 5, somewhere in through there.
Yep.
And then they phased all the Fiat dealers out pretty much. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We sold several of them.
And so right up until then, were they still calling them a Hesston tractor?
The very last ones just said Fiat.
Okay.
They were a Fiat F110 and F130.
Okay.
And they've got kind of a unique cab on them, whatnot. They didn't make any of the big ones. The big ones were still 160-90s, 180-90s. And then they kept making those, to my understanding, for several years and selling them in South America, Brazil, Mexico, but they painted them blue then and put New Holland logos on them.
Okay.
But it was the same tractor essentially as this, more or less.
Yep. Yeah, because there was a little overlap between all the... Cause
if you've ever seen in the international books, like that cab that Porsche designed for them that they didn't use.
Yep.
The cab on an F110 and F130 is kind of similar to that.
Okay.
I'm not saying Porsche had anything to do with it, but it looked kind of like maybe they did.
Yep.
Yeah, very similar.
So what year do you think this one is?
This should be an 84, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up for sure, but I'm pretty sure that would have been the last year for 1580s. So
And how many rated horsepower was it?
160, 150, 160.
Okay, but
Yeah.
she was a lot stronger than that.
Yeah, pretty much every one we sent out went out at 230.
And so how was the reliability at that horsepower?
I've only had one of the big motors apart in my life, and something weird happened to it. I don't remember what happened now, but yeah, they were pretty good. We didn't work on the engines.
Are they a dry clutch?
No. Well, let me rephrase that. The power shifts aren't. The power shifts just have essentially a disc so that something can give if it has
disconnect.
to. Yes. So it's the pressure plate's just against it all the time. You don't release any of that. You're doing all your releasing in the power shift on the clutch packs. But so it would have a disconnect if it had to slip out.
Right.
But yeah.
So this,
But they made them in standard transmissions as well. They still had a shuttle. If you're in the 90 series, they still had a shuttle, but then they had a regular clutch.
okay. So, because I'm guessing like on a straight transmission, the dry clutch with that much power, you'd probably had to put a couple clutches in.
No.
Oh, they were,
No, we didn't put not that I remember.
okay.
Not very many. The only thing we had to do to several of them is they had a recall. There was a nut on the front of the power shift, and they had a recall on those nuts. Turns out that batch was good. The replacement ones were bad. So a bunch of that we had to do twice.
Okay.
All the ones we'd already done, we ended up having to put that same nut or another new nut in because the replacement ones were bad. But that wasn't a terrible, terrible job.
So, so the series that came after this, the 90 series.
Yes.
Right. Then the power shift became pretty common
Yeah.
on them.
We probably sold, I'd have to look it up. I'm going to say probably 60-40 power shifts versus non, maybe even 70-30.
Okay.
Because there were still several guys that got, of course, sometimes is what you could get or what you could find or what they had a deal on, what another dealer needed to transfer out, et cetera, et cetera. So we still did sell several standard ones back then, but probably the majority were power shift.
So what would have been even the closest dealer to you?
That's a good question. I know there was one in Northern Illinois. As far as close around here, I don't think there was another one necessarily.
Okay. So if you were selling the Fiat tractor in the U.S., were all Fiat tractors Hesston's?
Yes.
Okay, so you couldn't be a Fiat dealer and not a Hesston dealer, or?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
You're talking about a lot of business stuff there that, I was 5 years old when all that started.
Well, yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know all that for sure, but I don't see how you could have been now.
But you guys were a full line
Yes.
Hesston dealer.
We sold tractors, skid loaders, hay equipment.
Yep.
We sold a ton of Hesston tillage equipment. A ton of Hesston tillage. We sold a lot of field cultivators, several discs, and a bunch of chisel plows. They had a chisel plow back then with a great big roller on the back of it, beater or whatever, rolling basket.
Yep.
And which I kind of laugh because then they were about the only one that did that back then, and now that's all the rage. It's like, well, I was doing that shit in the 80s.
Yeah.
But nobody else was.
Their
chisels would stay in the ground. A Glencoe was kind of light and would dance around.
Yep.
And Hesston chisel was heavy. They always said the back bar was filled with lead. I don't know if that's true. I had heard that at some point in time, but I know they didn't bounce around much.
Well, was that a Hesston built, like Hesston, Kansas built product?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the tractors, I guess.
The discs they bought from Bush Hog, I think. Or there were some similarities to Bush Hog discs anyway. But the field cultivators and the chisel plows, I'm 99% sure they built.
Okay.
Like, so we sold more conditioners, balers, a few silage choppers, a lot of tractors, several skid loaders.
Yeah.
Back then.
Hesston was a big name in haying.
Yes. Yeah, they were awesome in hay.
Yep. And
like I said, at one time they had their own hay equipment. They built all the baler hay equipment for Case IH, and they sold the pickup stuff for John Deere for their round baler. So they had the market. They had everybody but New Holland, which is why the government made them sell one off when they bought New Holland.
Right.
So,
right.
Unfortunately, they chose poorly, in my opinion. But hey, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I guess it all kind of come back around in one way or another. So.
Well, somewhere along the line, Fiat acquired Hesston Farm.
Yeah.
Right.
They had bought them in the 70s at some point, I think.
Yep.
I mean, they owned them the whole time we were messing with them. I'm pretty 99% sure.
Yeah. So when you guys were selling, I mean, the hand equipment back then was probably red and white, correct? The earlier Hesston stuff, right?
That would have been before my time.
Okay. Because yeah,
everything I remember was always Autumn Prime.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I think some of the early stuff wasn't really red, but it wasn't really brown like that. It was kind of in between-ish.
Yeah. The Hesston kind of had a different.
It wasn't
emblem.
a pretty red.
No,
it was a
pinkish. It faded pink. I know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were. I mean, in our area, there were a ton of the PT7s, PT9s.
Yeah. There was a million PT10s around here.
Yep.
And there were some dealers, I think, that were hay only. I think there was more hay dealers than there was full line dealers.
Yeah, because there probably weren't a ton of tractor dealers in.
There was more hay guys, I believe, than anything.
Yep. Yeah. And Hesston had a bigger out west. Their footprint was probably bigger.
Yeah.
Starting in Heston, Kansas, where the further east you went, New Holland was.
Yeah.
You know.
You don't see hardly any of them east of here, really. Like if you're just looking for ads, like you never see.
Right.
Them. I never see them on Tractor House east of here. Now you'll see a lot of them in Kansas, Colorado,
right,
Wyoming, Idaho. Idaho has a bunch of them. It seems like.
Okay.
But yeah, you don't see too many east of here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how do you find this one then? Was it connection through another dealer, or?
You know, I don't really remember. Like I said, I wasn't very old when that happened, because we probably bought that in, I don't know if my brother would remember or not, but probably 85 or 6. So
Okay.
Like there again, I was not super old, but yeah, he just heard about it somewhere, I think, and when I remember it wasn't all that far away. It was at a jockey's place somewhere, and so he went and looked at it and eventually worked him down to where he wanted to be and ended up getting it bought. So, yeah.
Was he kind of originally? Do you think he was thinking he would flip this one and sell it?
No, I don't think so. I think he wanted this one for himself from the start, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. The only negative to that is, like, we might have ended up with a front wheel assist 90 series if we hadn't done that, you know, because the last front wheel assist 90 series turned really good. The tires canted over when you turned.
Yep.
And it'd been nice to have front wheel assist for what we were doing with it at that time, big tillage. But now I guess it probably worked out, because now I would rather have it this way, I suppose, for what I use it for now. But
so in the U.S., there's not a huge Hesston tractor following. There isn't. But like say in Europe, is that a really collectible tractor then?
I doubt it. I don't know.
Okay.
My ancestors got on a wooden boat with no map to get the hell out of Europe. I assume I don't need to go back. I took their word for it that it wasn't the place for me. So,
yeah.
If they were willing to sail away, I stay away.
Okay. You know? Okay. Well, maybe somebody from Europe is going to be really common. If you get the right, I don't know how many euros does it take to buy it. I don't know what the exchange rate is.
I talked to a buddy of mine. I got a buddy from the Netherlands that's actually been pretty interested in it several times over the years. And I think they're fairly popular over there.
Yeah,
I know he tells me, like, back in his day of brush pulling, European style, he's like, oh, if somebody showed up with a Hesston, he's like, you might as well load up. You were going to get your butt kicked, was what he always told me. But we never did pull this one. But.
Well, it's turbocharged, 6-cylinder.
Yeah, with 494 cubes.
Yeah, that's a pretty big cubic inch engine, and it's got a Bosch A-model inline pump.
Yeah, and it's got a 3LM 466 turbo on it. So, of course, with a little more cubes, you can turn it a little harder than you could on a red one or whatever. So she'll talk to you.
Oh, yeah. I could see that being...
Yeah.
So you never did pull this one, did you?
No, never did.
Okay.
We had enough stuff we were pulling. Dad's like, no, that's the one we're not going to do that to. So
I get it.
Never did.
Yeah.
So
back then, in the 80s or as you're growing up, what was the farm like then? Because your dad would split his time probably between, he had to be fairly busy.
Honestly, my brother and I took over a lot of all the tillage and most of the planting pretty early on. Dad didn't work a ton of ground, honestly, until here, like the last 5 years. Probably my brother and I remember my brother started, gosh, I don't know how old he would have been, but I probably started at like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Dad might help you get to the field, but then you just worked ground till you were done and hollered on the FM radio or whatever. And I would just usually follow my brother. He usually field cultivated and I would run the disc back then. So I'd wait for him to get done, and then we'd cruise to the next field and take back off again. And then my brother took over the corn planting from Dad, gosh, probably in his freshman or sophomore year of high school, probably.
Oh,
so
really?
Early 90s, probably. Dad still planted a little bit back then, some. And then I took over planting the beans from him probably a year or two after that. So he did a lot of other stuff on the farm. As far as working ground and whatnot, he kind of turned that over to us pretty early on. So
Okay.
My brother actually put the majority of the hours on this one, probably.
Okay. Well, and I mean,
Like I said, he was higher on the totem pole, and it was our tillage tractor. So Dad was planting, I was disking, Heath was running this for the most part.
so what were the other backup tractors then to this at the time?
I think when we got,
Because I'm guessing you had
we had a 1206.
A rotating inventory,
We did.
though.
So we never farmed with the same set of tractors 2 years in a row until my brother and I got pretty involved, and we're like, and started buying tractors, and we're like, now we're just get them set up the way we want them, and we get rid of them. Like Heath and I's joke always was, we never got to use a tractor that everything was functioning. Like Dad would buy one, we'd use it for a while, figure out what all was wrong with it, then he'd fix it, torque, clutch, oil leaks, whatever, get everything where then he would sell it. Then he'd buy you another one. It's like, I never had one that had everything functioning for the longest time, but I think when we went, so we had the 1466 that became our pulling tractor, and that was probably our big tractor prior to this. But we pretty much just planted with that 14, I guess, once we got this. And then once it became a full-time pulling tractor, obviously that was off the equation. Our big tractor prior to that was a 1206
Okay.
that we had all painted up. And I think we might have got rid of it when we bought this, to be honest with you. That would have been about the same time.
Okay.
And so like back in those days when he was field cultivating with this, I was in a 1256, on a 1256 for a while. We did have another Hesston at one time. We had an 1180 that I ran a fair amount, till Dad sold it, of course.
That have a cab?
Yeah, yep. Twin to this, only it's a little shorter.
Okay.
It was not Powershift. A little smaller motor, like 359 cubes or something.
Okay.
Then we had so many 14s and 10s or whatever. I guess we had a 1586 in there for a while that I ran.
Yep.
At the same time as this for a little bit.
Well, I bet it was probably a treat when you got to run a
Yeah.
fairly new tractor with working everything.
Yeah, working everything. Like I said, plenty of power. And there's a hill over here. I remember pulling gravity wagons with it. Like hit the throttle, watch the boost gauge come around, and by the time you got to the top of the hill, it's probably time to get out of it. The pyrometer would be coming over, but you could always make it to the top of the hill. It's kind of fun. I wouldn't try that on mini tractors in high gear because most of them wouldn't hack it.
Right.
With two 500 bushel wagons behind them or whatever.
Yeah, and you don't want to stop and have to shift.
You don't want to stop and have to shift, no. No, but I remember trying it on my V8 one time. I did not try it in high gear, thankfully. And by the time I got to the top, it was, with those big wagons, I was starting to spin out because we had it lightened up for the few times I brush pulled it. So I'm like, I don't have enough traction or probably enough horsepower to do it, where this thing would just walk the dog. But
Yeah, I got an education from a lightened up for pulling tractor years ago with a manure spreader that ended lucky to be alive
yeah,
today.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So then, you're a kid, your brother's a kid going to school. You get done with school, were you out at the shop, or was there enough farming to do? Did you
We
have
farmed when
cattle?
it was time to farm. Otherwise, we were always in the shop.
Okay, so there wasn't. Did you have a lot of livestock or anything?
We didn't have any livestock.
Okay,
No.
so it was just cash grain.
Yep, just corn and soybeans and wheat and Milo when I was a really little kid. And then the shop. I remember I would clean the shop after school because, time you got home from school is 3:30.
Yep.
Get your clothes changed or whatever. It's, pushing 4. So I would start at the one corner on Monday and I would go around and clean the shop. And it took about a day per wall to do it right because you only had an hour.
Yep.
$1 a week. I would clean the shop for $1 a week. Thought I was tall cotton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wish I could find somebody to clean it for $1 now. I'd even throw them 2.
Well, you'd adjust for inflation to find somebody that would do it for that.
Exactly.
I bet that'd be even $4 today.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, when did the tractor pulling come along, or did your dad always?
So Dad had always pulled. He'd been tractor pulling since '68. From the stories I heard, obviously I wasn't there for it, but Then he got out when my brother and I were young, and then when my brother was coming up on 16, that's when we got into the farm stock pulling. So we pulled farm stock from 91 to 97, and then in 98 we bought the off season in 97 we got the pro stock. So 98 was our first year with it.
Okay.
So we had 1 year of still having the 12,000 pound class and no roll cage, and then a roll cage came out in 99.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, you had you bought an NTPA legal pro stock.
Yes, Carl Rosinski's Flirting with Disaster from Hillsboro, Illinois was our original one. And then when we built the component one ourselves,
Yep.
for the most part. Yeah.
So you had to put a cage on the.
We had to put a cage on the old one. And the first one was hideous. And the guy did a great job on it. We just didn't know any better, didn't have any pictures to show him, just told him to build us a roll cage. And at that time, they had a rule that you had to have so many inches of clearance from your helmet to the cage. And we actually abided by that rule, whereas most people didn't. The cage ended up super tall. We later put another one on it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was
I bought a kit from Engler later on and put a different one on it.
Yeah, I remember a buddy of mine had plans and was going to build his, and then it would just. I ended up buying one that existed.
Yeah.
And that
no doubt.
And you guys pulled then until what was your last time running?
National Farm Machinery Show a couple years ago. I think this would have been three. I think I've been to 2 that I didn't run at now. So I think three farm shows ago, whatever that makes it.
Okay.
Like 20 or 21.
See, and I think you should have stuck with it.
No.
And then
Best
just
decision I ever made. I'm super glad people still do it.
Well,
I love going and
when the component rule came out, why on earth didn't you put Hesston sheet metal on?
Yeah. We always talked about building a farm stock, Hesston.
Yeah.
I contemplated that. Honestly, if they had a bigger following, I would contemplate it just because it would be different. But I'm not going back down that path. I'd consider building a brush pulling tractor out of one of them at some point maybe, but
yeah. Oh, I mean,
I'm not dying to get back into that game at this point. I'm gonna get my kids raised and have fun watching them do their stuff for a while.
I hear you. I get
be
it.
where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
At work and with them. So
Yep, it's a lot.
yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So you lost your dad fairly recent
Yeah.
for the farm operation.
October,
But you're
yeah.
keeping you and your brother keeping the farm going and the shops going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been different, that's for sure. But yeah, we're keeping it all above board for now, I guess. So
And yeah, so when the whole Fiat purchase of New Holland, did you guys have an option to become a New Holland dealer?
no, because there was already several around here.
Okay, so you just
There was already one in Shelbyville, Effingham, and probably Mattoon, I think. So there was already 3 here. I don't think it was an option anyway. The screwy part about it is we had just bought another facility and was planning on moving there when that happened. Had that happened before we bought that, we probably wouldn't have bought that.
Right.
And coincidentally, there was a farm that had came up that we probably would have bought instead.
Right.
That came up right after we bought that facility. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm glad to have the space, I suppose. But we never did move over there then as a result of that because Fiat was going to expand. Dad had just been to the dealer meeting and they had all these, big plans. And then they just bought New Holland and said, "Oh, I guess we're going to do this." So it is what it is.
Then did you take on another? You never got another full line then, did you?
No, we didn't take another full line on. We took on Zetter tractors not too long after that, and we still sell those.
Yep.
And we've had good luck with them. They're a tough tractor,
Yep.
but no, they didn't have near the lineup as Hesston did.
And you got a couple other short lines.
Yeah,
right?
we got several other short lines. Yeah, Salford,
So-
etc. But yeah, Capello, corn heads and whatnot. So yeah, we sell several other things. But as far as a full line, the days of a guy like me having a full line dealership are coming to a close.
Yeah.
You pretty much have to have several stores to have full lines anymore.
Right.
So, which is fine. That's the nature of the beast,
So I mean, we talk all the time about farms are getting bigger.
Yeah,
That's just how it is.
that's how it is.
Dealerships are getting bigger.
Yeah.
So do you, anticipate the small dealership model? Do you think your kids will be able to sell short line equipment?
I think, yeah. I mean, the short lines are always going to. There's always going to be short line companies, right? Because they can do things so much cheaper than a major, and they can make running changes a lot easier than a Deere or a Case can, right? Like
Right.
if company ABC wants to start building whatever, a little trinket, like they can switch and do that pretty quick, and they don't have the corporate overhead as those big companies. And those big companies also dictate that some of their big mega dealers don't sell short line stuff. You know, they highly discourage that if it's a competing product, and that's just going to get worse and worse, I would say. And there's some buying power for them if the more of their name brand stuff they sell, I'm sure the better off they are on certain things. So their incentive is to buy or sell their name brand stuff, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the short line stuff. So I think there'll always be a place for short line guys. But
Well, and as time goes on, you could probably, even if you didn't want to maintain a dealership facility, you could sell corn heads at the farm, right?
yeah, you could technically, yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that moves on.
The bad part about short line stuff is, I mean, and it happens to major companies too, though, like you see it's like it's going good, it's going good, it's going good, they get bought out.
Yeah.
Well, now it's either got really good or it's going the other way fast, you know, and then usually another company pops up to replace, if it goes bad, another company pops up and takes over some of their market. But I've seen that countless times, like, hey, this company was really good to work with, and then they got bought out.
Yeah.
And then now you can't get a hold of anybody and nobody knows anything, and it's, you know.
Or it gets bought by a big company.
Or it gets bought by a group of investors that are looking to flip it. So they position themselves to make it look really profitable so that they can sell it off, you know, which you see a lot of. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
So going forward, continue with doing what you're doing, and you guys work on pulling tractors some too,
Yeah.
right? And farm tractors.
And
You do
farm
repair.
tractors, yeah.
Repair shop has been quite a bit of the.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the repair shop's been probably the main thing for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder to find people that do that.
Those guys are dying off. I mean, the
Yeah.
stuff my dad knew about, I mean, I tried to listen as much as I could, but obviously I didn't catch it all, you know. So we're running out of those guys that grew up doing 4 of those a week, you know, back in the day. So that it's ingrained in their memory, you know. Now you run into that problem once every 4 years. It's hard to remember, you know.
Yeah, I bet
on.
there's less guys that know how to go through a Ruza Master pump today than there was yesterday.
Oh, for sure. For sure. My dad could do those in his sleep.
Right.
You know, loved them.
You know, TAs and
Yeah.
Have you seen a growth in demand for that kind of stuff, like fixing up? I mean, obviously, like 66 Series Internationals are near and dear to you.
Yeah, so we used to put a ton of those in because guys were using them, right?
Yeah.
And then it really dropped off because they were becoming auger tractors, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's kind of starting to go back the other way a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because guys are fixing them up now, but that's going to be a one-shot deal, right? They're not going to knock them out again. If you put an aftermarket one in, honestly, I've only replaced 2 aftermarket Torques in my life. I looked the one of them was 2 years ago, I think. I looked it up. We put that one in '85. So that's not too bad. And the other one, something happened to the guy. They got it stuck and got to ramming around on it. And honestly, the torque probably wasn't bad, but he blew the whole bottom of the transmission housing out. Something happened and it shoved the bottom shaft through the transmission housing. So we're like, well, the torque's probably bad. So we'll put a new one in while we're there because we had to put a whole new center section in. And that's the only 2 aftermarket ones I've ever replaced. Other than, I did get one, I guess, the other day on my dad's tractor that was bad out of the box. But that's a fluke deal. I've never had that before. Fortunately, it was on mine. So, you know, I didn't have to argue with the customer over it and, you know, so on and so forth. So that worked out good, I guess. But I've only seen that one time, so.
Yeah. Well, the restoration of these tractors is getting, you know, more common.
Yeah.
So.
Well, guys are starting to, even if they're not restoring them, they're starting to say, hey, I can't replace this tractor for, it's worth a lot, kind of, sort of ish, because they went up. But you can't, 20, 30 grand doesn't get you much in the way of a chore tractor. And if you're a livestock guy and you need one on a TMR and a manure spreader and a feed grinder and this, that, and the other tractor for every job, like they're starting to fix some stuff on them now because the shift linkage is getting wore and the hydraulic levers are getting wore and all that. They're fixing that stuff now. So
yeah, they're not. It's not. Well, there's no sense in fixing this one because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Just
back when they were a $4,500 tractor, well, I'm not gonna worry about it. But now that they're, $14,000 for a not that nice one, well, I guess we'll go ahead and fix it and go on.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're kind of getting sentimental too. It's like, well, might as well fix it now. Like we're not gonna get rid of it. Dad had it for 20 years. I've had it for 15. Like we might as well fix it up and keep it around. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, as a dealership thing, of what model tractor do you think you've sold more, been through the dealership than any other?
Far as to work on,
New or used sold?
new or used sold, it'd have to be 66s if I'm counting Dad's years, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to have 1066s one after the other. It seemed like,
Yeah.
he was always selling those, buying them and selling them.
Yep.
Like I said, we never farmed with the same set 2 years in a row. We were always swapping them around,
Well, and then, what if you had to pick one model tractor that's been your favorite throughout the years?
I'm a 1466 guy.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Always been partial. We had that one that became our pulling tractor when I was pretty young on the farm here, and it was always pretty healthy. Always liked running it, and then we had a slug of other ones. Seems like the ones that we used a lot were always 14s, and now we've got 4 or 5 of them around here now. So
Yep.
I'm a 14 guy.
Yeah. But you like your newer Magnums.
Oh,
and
for
stuff.
sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like everything else. That was a monster tractor in its day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not now.
No, they're not now, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'd have told me when I was a kid that we were going to have them on augers and that's all we were going to do with them, I'd have called you a liar. But,
For sure.
the tractors we were using on augers then won't even lift or move the auger around that we've got now, so.
Well, yeah, I always kind of laugh when somebody's like, well, we're going to, the old 4020 or the 806 for the auger. And it's like, well, you get a 13-inch swing hopper auger and you better have her running pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's for certain.
Yeah, farming has just changed. And,
It's the nature of it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you'd have ran the same amount of acres today back then, you probably wouldn't have had a dealership. You'd have been
No, probably
just
not
farming.
necessarily. Yeah. Yeah.
So
my dad worked at a few different IH dealers back in the day and then went out on his own in 82. Started his own repair shop. So,
and he farmed way longer than that.
Yeah.
So did he always farm?
Yeah. Yeah, he grew up on the farm here. And honestly, my grandpa had back surgery when my dad was 10 or 11 maybe. And right at spring planting time. So my dad had to do all the tillage and all the planting at between 10 and 14 years old. I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't remember now, and I can't ask him. But so he did all the farming that year because Grandpa couldn't walk, couldn't stand.
Okay.
So yeah, and then he took over when his dad turned 65. He retired, and Dad was farming most of it by then anyway, but took over for certain then. So, yeah.
So I bet he was a busy guy.
Yeah, like I said, with a lot of evenings and weekends.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it was a different time. I mean.
Yeah.
I bet your dad didn't go to every single sporting event.
No, but he caught the majority of them.
Did he?
He caught the majority of them.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I remember he did tell my brother, like, okay, you're done playing baseball. Like, I need you on the farm. We ain't got time for that shit. That's during farming season. So my brother didn't play baseball anymore after that. So I just assumed that was the rule. I didn't even play past grade school or whatever. I'm like, well, I don't have time. Because not that my brother and I started the exact same time, but I was always a fair amount bigger than him. So if he started doing something at 13, I started doing it at 9 or 10, possibly,
Yeah.
because I was physically bigger than most kids.
Yep.
So yeah, Dad turned a bunch of stuff over to us as far as the actual labor part of it and went on. So,
which that's good because your dad's gone. You guys are very capable of running the farm where, a lot of times
Yeah, it's not necessarily the case, right?
Right. Yeah. The dad kind of rules everything, and this is.
I'm not saying he didn't rule some stuff, but
Yeah.
far as this needs worked and this needs planted and go get it done. My dad had a few hard and fast rules, and after that he didn't micromanage. He kind of sent you on your way and off you go. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, had he kind of started slowing down prior to dying, like, or was he still full time?
He was still full time in the shop. I mean, he might go in an hour earlier than he used to. In the evenings, his feet and his legs would get to hurting him, but he was working up until the end of August. He passed away in October, but he was working until the end of August.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But he probably loved what he did, so that makes a big difference.
I mean, the shop was his hobby. By that point, that's what he liked doing. That's what he knew.
Yep.
So, like I said, he didn't necessarily spend all day out there, but 90% of it anyway.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
hopefully, it's not a bad way to go through life, is it?
no. I'd rather him go that way than have been in a nursing home for 10 years. That was his biggest fear, and he avoided that. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think you can, and probably really cool to work with your son.
I was truly blessed in the fact that I got to work with him for 40-some years, Most people don't get that chance with their dad. I mean, literally, outside of a couple of vacations and the occasional tractor pull back in the day that I went to by myself, in college, I guess, we weren't apart very much,
Right.
So I saw him at some point through the day, pretty often. So.
Yeah, I'd say that was a really good
it's pretty lucky there.
position to have,
Yeah, pretty lucky there.
So, yeah, and hopefully you can kind of keep working with family.
Yeah, hopefully we can work my son into it, and if he wants to, and keep on trucking.
Yeah,
So.
And you're farming with your brother,
Yes.
and he has kids, so
yeah. Hopefully my son and my nephew decide they want to partner up like we have, and or at least nothing else we can have them do slave labor. I don't, either way.
Well, that works too.
Whatever, just as long as it's getting done. So.
Yeah. Maybe you should get a herd of dairy cows. And
No, I'm all good there.
Oh,
all
okay.
good there.
All right. Well,
I contribute to the dairy farmer by eating more cheese than I should. That's
all
how I
right.
help the
All
American
right. All
dairy
right.
farmer.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I just thought if you need to find some work. For
No,
those
I got
kids,
plenty of work.
That seemed to work pretty good around home.
Plenty of work to do.
They were. Yep. Get them some livestock.
Yeah.
But no, that's great. And this, pretty cool tractor. I didn't realize it was that rare.
Yeah, like I said, 1580s in general are not, but this one is kind of special. And look, the door opens the right way, and the opening is big enough to get your foot through, unlike you sound guard Al cage cab guys.
I mean,
and the shifter's like not in your way,
not in
tilt
the way,
wheel.
Yep. And CB.
And CB.
Factory CB.
Yes, and sunroof.
How do you beat
you're not
that?
getting a sunroof in a Al cage, okay?
How didn't they sell more of these?
I don't know. Look at that.
Oh, wow. See?
You can be sunroofing, talking on the old Citizens band. You guys didn't know what you were missing.
Well, part of the problem would be you'd break something or you'd hit something and you'd be dragging it behind you because you'd be too busy enjoying the comfort of your cab and your CB.
That's true. There's nothing better than having it just about 1,300 RPMs where the pump will lope with the sunroof open, just let her dance along, pulling in the lot. It's a pretty good day.
What sounds better, this or DT with a straight pipe?
This thing will talk to you pretty good.
What's a bigger engine?
It's a bigger engine. Like I said, it pushes that turbo a little harder. Honestly, under load, these probably sound better. The weird part about these is they stink when you first start them up.
Oh,
the
really?
smoke doesn't smell anything like a DT.
Huh.
Doesn't smell anything like if you put me in a room blindfolded and take some exhaust smoke and put it in that room, I can tell you if it came out of a Hesston or not. They smell completely different than anything other tractor.
Okay.
I don't know why. You'd think they'd smell like pasta, but they don't. Yeah. No, but they do smell different than any other one.
Are they pretty good starters as far as...
The small ones start really good. The big ones don't start as good as they could.
Okay. How many...
They'll always start, but they need a little summer in a can.
Shake the steering wheel. That seems to work from what I've seen.
Hey, you don't have to do that.
Oh, okay. I've heard guys do
just
that.
Just give them a little sniff.
But
they don't start as good as a DT.
Okay.
But they're probably more fuel efficient than a DT.
Well,
Like, you can't hardly make this thing use more than half gallon an acre.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, an inline pump like that without the advance, like the rotary. I mean, I bet if you put an inline pump on the DT, they won't start
Wouldn't
quite
start
as
as
good.
good, yeah.
Yeah, so that probably makes a difference.
Inline's out of time all the time, But I still like inline pumps better. Pumps should be in a row, not in a circle.
Yeah, that I don't know, John Deere, but
But they don't have to start at full throttle.
oh, well, any engine worth keeping better hold itself
Yeah,
together. I mean,
suppose. That's your
So,
theory.
Being bigger like that, how many RPMs is this is wide open?
They didn't turn a ton, like 23.
Okay, so they're not like 26 on
No. 23, 24 at the most.
Okay.
On the big ones. The small ones, like the 1180s and that, they run 27, 28, 29, something like that. But the big ones didn't turn that much.
Okay, because I mean your 1066 will run 26.
2850.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was wondering what that. So did they make it up in stroke or
Bore and stroke.
Okay.
It's got a bigger bore and stroke than an IH, I think.
Okay.
I'd have to look that up. I know the bore's bigger. I don't remember on the stroke.
And it's an Iveco.
And these are kind of like a Cummins where they're mid-supported sleeves.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's an Iveco engine.
Yeah.
So
I was a Veco before Veco was cool.
The FPT.
Yeah. Precursor to all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, everything tied together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I mean, that's a whole lot of companies went into one. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't. I've never been around the bigger one. There were some smaller ones in the area, but that's pretty cool. I think this is a good one to do.
Yeah, like I said, you're probably not going to run into another one.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
So, well, now you got to find the front wheel assist to have the pair.
I don't need one. This one's good enough. I don't have any shed space for anything else. I gotta quit acquiring on stuff like that.
No, you just need more sheds. You acquire another
true.
shed, and then
That's true.
Give me enough money, and I'd have a lot of tractors.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
Who's ever said I've got too many tractors?
Oh, I didn't say I had too many. I just
Okay, well,
running out of space to put them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You just don't have enough sheds.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Well, yeah, I thought this was a really good one. Thanks for doing this,
Yep,
Nick.
thanks for having me.
All right.